thank you for being here. It's a pleasure talking to you. I have been waiting to have this talk, and you look absolutely stunning. You always do.
Thank
And
you so much. Thank you.
yeah,
It's like 9 in
so
the morning here, so my coffee is still registering. So I'm glad that it looks okay.
yeah, absolutely stunning. So I wanted to begin with, if you could tell us a little about yourself, and then, of course, tell us a little about the book as well, which is Jay's Gay Agenda.
You bet. So my name is Jason June, and that's a two-name first name like Mary Kate, but without the hyphen or the Olsen twin, because I'm obsessed with MKNA. And I'm the author of Jay's Gay Agenda, which is a young adult queer rom-com
Yes.
about a type A Virgo list maker who is the only out kid in his small farming community. And
Mhm.
so while he watches all of his high school classmates have all these milestones in relationships, like first time going on dates, first kisses, first time having sex,
Mhm.
he doesn't get to have any of them. So he makes a whole list of all the things he wants to do when he finally meets another gay boy.
Right.
And then within like chapter 3, his family moves to Seattle, which has a very thriving queer community. And the whole book follows him finally getting to cross items off his list and all the hijinks that ensue from that.
I'm going to take a moment just to tell you how much I adored the book. So I was waiting to get an ARC for this book but somehow because of COVID-19 that didn't transpire. So I read it as almost on the day it came out. And like I was like, oh, it's out. Let me just go and read it. So, and luckily, I don't know if you've heard the audiobook version or not, but the narrator has done such a fabulous job to
Yes.
to kind of capture Jay's voice,
Yes.
and of course with your writing and with the voice that you have created, they did such a great justice to the character, and I was instantly hooked. So I loved it. I loved Jay's Gay Agenda, and which also brings me to my second question, which is, the whole idea of creating lists or having like the gay agenda, which for most people who are aware with the queer community would know what kind of reputation gay agenda kind of really
Yeah.
has that. So could you talk a little on that? Like, as growing up, did you have an agenda? I mean, like list of things that you wanted to, go through, and where are you on that? And also part of which maybe you can focus on how you were able to turn, the gay agenda on its head.
Yes, totally. Well, first of all, thank you for all those lovely words about Jay. I'm so glad that you really liked the book. And that's the whole
Right,
reason I wrote this was to find the people that it would connect with their hearts. And so um, as far as the gay agenda, I
right.
didn't have a list when I was in high school. I was just like Jay, the only out gay kid at a rural high school.
Mhm.
Um, but I did keep a diary. And in that diary, I would describe all the things I wanted to do, which was both romantic and physical and just longing for the day when I finally met other gay people.
Right.
And so I used that diary as sort of inspiration for the list. As I've grown older, I've become more of a list maker, and I think it's such a fun way to organize a novel, like any kind of listy books. I'm just a big fan of because
Mhm.
in my life, I understand wanting to plan things like that, and then finding the comedy in the fact that even though we have a very clear list and set of goals that we want to get to, that life is not going to turn out how we want.
Right.
So that was why I really wanted to make a list in this, was to
Mhm.
give Jay that first lesson of, hey, you can be a big time planner, but it's nothing is ever going to go according to plan. You might have little bits that do, but 100% is never going to do that.
Right.
And
Right.
then, just like you said, I wanted to call it the gay agenda because there's this insane idea from people who
Yeah.
are against equal rights for the queer community that we have this master plan to turn everybody gay. And that's not it at all. That's not even how sexuality or gender identity works.
Right.
Uh, so I wanted to play on that and be like, listen, the only gay agenda any of us have is our own individual hopes and dreams, like wanting
Right.
to have our specific things, whether it's somebody like myself or Max who's genderqueer and we want to have items on our agendas, whether they're literal or metaphorical, about discovering our gender identity, or whether they're like Jay or anybody who is in any letter of our beautiful rainbow alphabet who has certain sexual things they want to cross off, because
Right.
that's a beautiful part of humanity for so many of us. And denying our sexuality is just torturous. It's not really how
It is.
anybody should have to be
It
faced to
is.
live in
Yeah.
terms of embracing their full humanity. As long as everything is safe and everyone's on the same page, you can
Right.
have so much fun by bonding over your bodies. Just like I said before, as long as everything is consensual and as long as everything is safe, you don't have to just prescribe to, oh, I'm in this body, so I'm only allowed to have this partner. It's a
Right.
beautiful thing to want to connect with any human. And I'm just really excited to be in this part of queer creators, this generation of queer creators, where we're talking about the multitude of experiences in
Right.
sexuality and in gender and letting everyone know that they're valid. I'm so happy for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would totally agree with you on that. Now, I wanted to know because if you would ask me that which is my favorite part in your book, it's very difficult to pick one. So I'm
Uh,
gonna put this ball in your court and ask
okay.
you which was your favorite part to write.
So I have sort of a two-part answer to this.
Okay.
Throughout the whole journey, my favorite thing was writing Jay's list and
Ah.
especially editing it as he met new people and realized, oh, I could have new details involved in each
Mhm,
of these items. That was so
mhm,
much fun for me.
mhm.
And then, but my absolute favorite scene, without giving anything away, is the ending. The ending has stayed
Okay.
the same from first draft until publication. It hasn't changed at all. And I was so happy about that. I think it's such a tender moment of
Right.
owning up to mistakes and
Hmm.
somebody forgiving you for hurting them and also being vulnerable in their part by saying, I want to continue this. I'm acknowledging that you're apologizing and I'm going to accept that
Right.
apology. But
Right.
it's a vulnerable thing to then say, but let's try again because you've exposed to this person how you can be hurt. And that's a big thing to be sort of like frayed and show your sensitive spots to somebody.
It
And I
is.
just really love that, where both people involved, one saying, you know, I was a major asshole and I shouldn't have done that. And the other one being like, you know what, you were a major asshole and it really hurt me. And if you ever did it again, it would crush me. And I just really love that.
Absolutely. Again, I agree on that. I liked how you were able to pick two because, yeah, as I said, for me, it was everything, whether it was, Jay's agendas, because and one of the things that I wanted to note was also wanted to make note of it was the fact that a lot of these things don't necessarily keep changing. So every time every time there's an addition, you made sure that you just did not added the new points, but you went through the whole list again and again. So now, if you ask me, I can actually tell you all the things that he had on his agenda because I have it in my mind. And it's not like in a bad way. Like, I know for some people it can get a little annoying because it's a repetition of the same thing again and again.
Right.
But for me, it was so amazing because it kind of was, giving me an idea how much has he, gone through. So that was absolutely amazing. And moving forward, I think this question might have come to you in some way or form, but I'll still go ahead and ask this. That is, all your chapters had such interesting names. And, I think, so I just wanted to know, how did you come up with them? Like, was it on the way while you were writing, or was it like, did you finish writing and then went back and then looked through the chapter and picked up a word that, felt best? So what was the process like?
Yeah. So I'm so glad you like those chapter headings. What I wanted to do with those was, since this is organized around a whole list,
Yeah.
and that Jay has all these amazing things on his list that he wants to do,
Yeah.
I wanted to show through the chapter headings that even as you're going about trying to do all these fun, wonderful things, unexpected and sometimes bad things can happen to you.
Happen, yeah.
And so when I wrote the chapter headings, I wanted those to be things that Jay never planned.
Mhm.
But all of a sudden, it's this accomplishment that, oh, I can mark that off the list of life. And so for most of them, it was going and giving them a name after the fact,
Right,
as opposed to
right.
in. There were some that I knew, oh, this is clearly what the title is going to be like.
Mm-mm,
I think the title for when Jay loses his virginity is Go All the Way.
mhm.
And that is what it was called all along, just because I knew this was going to be it
Mm.
when Jay has sex, how he defines it. And I think that's an important thing that I don't know uh, every reader understands. There is that in Jay's Gay Agenda, it's a sex positive book, and this is just how Jay defines sex and the things that he wants to do. But it's
Right.
not at all meant to be a way to say that if you don't have the same experiences as Jay, or if you're not into the same type of sex that Jay is, that suddenly you like quote unquote haven't lost your virginity. Like we all get to define what our virginity is, and this
Right.
was how Jay defines his.
I mean, I would, when I was reading it, like, as a reader, at least I don't read books in one sitting, no matter how amazing the book is, because I can't do it. Like, for me, it's always like, break it up into bits and pieces. So while I was reading it, usually what we readers do is that we make a note, okay, after this chapter ends, I'm going to stop and then I'll continue from the next chapter next day. With this one, every time a chapter is ending and then there's such a fancy ass heading to it. I mean, the title to the chapter, I'm like, oh my God, what is this about? I need to keep reading. I need to find out. So that kept me in a loop. And I think I finished this book fairly soon. I think in 2 days, I heard it on audio. So it was easy. So, but it is so much amazing to, just to do that. And also, you've mentioned so many pop cultural references every now and then. I would like KJ Apa or Shawn Mendes or music or just any of those things. And it's so interesting to see how it all comes down into the life, because for a lot of queer people, and specifically for boys who don't identify as, like, let's say straight, like who identify as gay, bisexual, pansexual, or even trans for that matter, for us, a lot of straight male icons are like, the first people to tell us that, oh, there's something different. We're not the same. So with
Completely.
Jay, I think, with all these people that you kind of included in, they were kind of playing a big role in his life, right?
Yeah, I think that's totally accurate. For so many queer people, it's pop culture that helps us understand our queerness or get those first inklings. Like
Right.
for me, there were multiple things, but things that really stand out are the 13th Year, which was a Disney Channel original movie about a boy who becomes a merman and
Right.
when he turns 13. Not only have I always been obsessed with mer people in general, that I love that, but also like I was probably a year younger than the protagonist when that came out. And
Right.
I had such a crush on him. And I was like, oh my God, wait a minute.
If you
Like,
like Merman, I just like do this honor, because I was just in conversation day before yesterday with FT Lukens, and I don't know if you
I
can see
cannot
on,
wait to read that. I've heard so many good
but
things.
this is basically best described as a Little Mermaid retelling, but with two guys, and it's so good. Just because you mentioned you love Merman, I had to bring this up because stunning, stunning.
I love
Yeah.
that so much. I cannot wait to read it. My second novel is actually a queer retelling of the movie Splash. Is kind of my quick pitch for that, where a mer
Yeah.
person comes on shore
Yeah.
and falls in love with a human, all these fun things.
Right.
Um, and so, oh, where was I going with that? Oh, I just turned in copy edits, and
Right.
my reward to myself is going to be to start to read all these fabulous
Yeah.
person books. In Deeper Waters, I can't wait to
Right.
read Bethany Morrow's sequel to A Song Below Water. I'm so
Right.
excited.
Right.
So many.
Right. So I wanted to touch back on what you said just like a while ago about the book being sex positive. And it's often, not only was it, marketed as a sex positive book, but when I as a reader also read it, it reminded me a lot of this book called Jack of Hearts and Other Parts by Elsie
Yes,
Rosen,
I
which
love
is
that book.
another amazing book, and it's very sex positive.
Yes.
And I loved it. I loved that book. I love this book. However, as you also touched upon, how there's an idea that if your experiences of, or if your willingness to have something like certain kind of sex or certain kind of experiences when it concerns your sexuality, and if it doesn't matches with other people just think that, okay, this is too much or this is too less, or they have a judgment towards it. So I
Yeah.
have come across a lot of readers who've kind of, said that no, but they did not like Jay because, he was not being honest to himself. And I got into it like a full-on war. Like, how can you say that? Because he was just exploring himself and he was kind of just being who he is. Like, how would you even know what you want if you don't go out there and explore? Like,
Right.
how would you? For some people, they know it because for them it's obvious, but for others, it's a lot of trial and error. So I wanted
Yeah.
to know, while you were writing or approaching the subject, how did you went about doing it?
Yeah. So for making this sex positive, I wanted to be really honest about a specific type of person with who was born male. Like
Right.
Jay is cisgender. I'm not cisgender, but I still had a connection with my body at post
Right.
puberty.
Right.
And I wanted to be honest about the experience of some, just for lack of a better term, penis having individuals after puberty. We're thinking about sex all the time. Not all of us, but some of us.
Large part
And,
of us, yeah.
right. And I wanted to normalize and make okay and let
Right.
these specific penis having individuals know it's
Right.
okay if you think about sex all hours of the day. Like from 15 to 19, I thought about sex probably like every other minute, where it was just like, when can I have it? Who can I have it with? I want to explore my body. I want to figure myself out. And I want that to be okay. Like that's our bodies have these feelings for a reason. And it's, in my mind, that reason is to connect with other parts of humanity. And that's not to say that if you aren't into sex, you cannot connect with humanity at all. But for some of us, that is our journey, and that's something that's really important in our lives. And so I wanted to make this true to the fact of that there are people out there who are thinking about sex all the time, even in things that seem like they could not be related to sex. It gets related to sex. And Jay is one of those people where he's just like, I literally haven't even been able to kiss somebody, and I know I'm gay, and I'm almost 18 years old. So like, it's always going to be on my mind when I'm finally going to be able to have this experience, which was me. Like I was not able to, for me, it was 17 when I was finally able to kiss somebody. But it's just like, wow, it takes up your whole head. And so I wanted to talk about that.
I think.
But also, I wanted to be sure that this didn't venture into the realm of erotica, because this is still, in my mind, it's still a rom-com. And there's nothing wrong with erotica, but also this is for teen audiences.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to find that balance of embracing your sexuality, being realistic about your thoughts, still having a scene where he's having sex, but showing it in a way that's like
educating
meant more to let readers
awareness,
know that they're not alone.
Yeah.
And that these kind of things are, these thoughts, these actions are a beautiful thing. And that's what I wanted to focus on, was more the realism of it, but also the beauty of it and finding the connection, as opposed to just like writing sex scenes. You know what I mean?
Right. Also, just to like reiterate, I feel, as to what you said about how people between the ages of 13 to 17 kind of think about sex all the time. I would kind of like to say every single person thinks about sex all the time. I think this is how I see it. I see the world. It's just that some people don't say it out loud, but sex is always behind our minds. And the reason why it's so obvious in that 13 to 17 bracket, it's probably because they are, puberty is like hitting you at its greatest speed that time. So your hormones are, bubbling, and, it's kind of secreting all kinds of secretions. So, so you have to give them that idea that, they will be the most reactive people. I have this bad habit that every time I love a book, I want other people to love it as well. So I look for people to turn them into, oh, you've read this book. Okay, let's go. You read this book and we'll talk about it together. So every time I see a post about your book, so I see, oh, okay, what the person is writing, and then I make sure that if something that I don't agree with, I always leave a comment saying that, hey, this is what I thought. So just to contradict. And I mean, what's the point of being in the book community if you can't, have space for open discussion and debate? Because at the end of the day, it's art. It can be good to some, it can be bad to some. So it's relative.
Exactly. And thank you so much for sticking up for Jay. I know for some readers, they don't like the fact that he's dating multiple people at once.
That's one thing that kind of kept coming up a lot of times in a lot of different things that I've read. But
completely. And so I definitely, in my mind, and every feeling and review is valid. So if anyone disagrees with me, that's totally fine. My mind is, Jay can definitely be classified as a liar. His mistake was not being open with Albert about everything he was doing with other people that he's dating. But I definitely would not call him a cheater. I think that that's too extreme of a critique, because I don't think, in my personal view. You cannot cheat on somebody you haven't made a promise to. You
Of
can lie to
course.
somebody, and
Yeah.
he lies by omission.
Yeah.
But I equate that to like if somebody accidentally runs over your toe
Yeah.
with their car, but then the person goes, "They just hit me with their car." Saying you hit me with your car implies like you were hit and you're
Yeah.
lucky to be alive, but they really just ran over your toe, which still
Yeah.
creates pain, and that's awful, and that needs to be fixed. But you weren't hit with a car. It's the same thing here.
Yeah.
Like
And
it's
like
saying
please
Jay is a
give,
cheater
yeah, and I was
implies
saying,
something
I
else.
would suggest these people to please give Jay like benefit of doubt. He's only 17, I think 16 turning 17 or 17 turning
Yeah.
18. Like, I mean, please give him the doubt. He's not gonna be, nobody knows how he's gonna turn up to be. So, like, there's time. He's just exploring right now. So let him live his life. You live yours.
Yeah. And that's not to say that he shouldn't be held accountable for the mistakes he makes. Like
Right,
he
right.
straight up lies to Albert by omission, and that's not okay. And there's
Yeah.
but this is the story of Jay learning that lesson.
But kind of moving forward a little bit, I still don't have the physical copy of this book because Book Depository is taking, I don't know how long to deliver it to India because of the
Oh
COVID
no.
restrictions. But I still have my, my digital copy. I don't know if you guys can see or not. So I would quickly just wanted to ask you about how, to what extent, you were involved in the cover creation process, because it is absolutely stunning. It's breathtaking.
Isn't it
And
so good?
I was so, yeah, please show it because my screen is too bright, so it's not showing up yet. It's gorgeous. And you know what? I'll be super honest with you because I had been reading I'm a cover buy person, so I buy books because of beautiful cover. And
Yes.
of late, I've been read. I mean, I will not name names, but of late, I've been really been disappointed with the books that I've bought because of their cover. So, the whole saying, don't judge a book by its cover has become like, has come and bit me back in my ass. So I was so skeptical. This cover is so beautiful. Is it even going to live up to the expectations? And I was so apprehensive while getting into this book. And then I went, I heard, and then not only did you stood up onto the expectations, but you kind of went far beyond. And I felt that the cover does such a great compliment to the book, to the story in itself, and it captures the whole emotion with the color palette that the illustrator or the designer has used is gorgeous. So I wanted to know what was your involvement and what was your first reaction when you saw the cover.
When I first saw the cover, I freaked out. I just started screaming. I love it so much. It's just like you can feel Jay and Albert, just the sparks between them. It is so good. I just
Yeah,
love it.
yeah,
So the illustrator's name is Ricardo Besa,
right,
and designer from HarperCollins is David DeWitt, and they
right,
did an amazing job.
absolutely.
I did not have any say in the cover,
Okay,
but I was still kept in the loop the whole time. Like my editor was like, "Here's the illustrator we're thinking of. Here's
right,
some of Ricardo's portfolio," and I
right,
was like, "Yes, I absolutely love it." And then the part where I was asked for feedback was like in the sketching phase, just to make sure there wasn't anything about the characters that seemed off to how they are in the book.
right,
So the one I sent in, I sent in a few pictures of potential outfits that Max could be in on the cover.
right,
I also suggested that we put Lou in her diner outfit, since like that's such a huge part of her
yeah,
storyline is that she has to work all the time.
right.
And so, but other than that, I mean, like that is just a tiny little drop. Sorry, excuse me. Um, there we go. Sorry, there's just a tiny little drop
Yeah.
of my feedback in there, and but this is a whole ocean of Ricardo and David's brilliance. Like, I just love it so much, and
Same.
I can't say much more about the cover of my next book, except it's going to blow your freaking minds, and it's going to be so good.
Oh my
It's going to be
God.
so good.
I can't wait. I can't wait for the cover reveal. And just because we're talking about your second book, I just wanted to know that do you know that on Goodreads, if you go and type your name, it's showing Jay's Gay Agenda 2. Like
Yeah.
so what is that? Like is that a sequel? Is it coming out? Are we
So
getting it?
So this was, I think somebody read my deal announcement for a 2-book deal and misinterpreted that to mean that it was going to be 2 books in the J world. So
Right.
as of right now, there is not a second J book.
I really hope that happens, but I also at the same time understand that with contemporary fiction and specifically with something which is not fantasy, doing sequels is, I think, is a little bit harder when it comes, because you really need to know what you're saying, because the idea kind of is usually one book, as you said, that JSK agenda was about, a very certain thing. And of course, while the sequel can have, an extension of those things which happened in the first book, but it has to stand up on its own feet as well. And before I, put across my concluding question, I kind of wanted to note that how interesting it was to see that this book, JSK Agenda, it doesn't really have any cliche, book tropes. It doesn't have enemies to lovers. It doesn't really have, the sunshine and the grumpy, or opposites attract, nerd and the jock. I mean, it's kind of mixed in, like it has bits and pieces kind of all, but it's still not like, nobody can categorize it that this is this trope. And
Yeah.
honestly, like I've read so much of YA, and I primarily read YA and new adult, and also to some fair extent adult romances. And today, not that tropes are bad, but there's an overdo of tropes these days. So
With
reading
a
a
lot of
book,
tropes. My next book
yeah,
is a trope.
it's like reading a book that's not necessarily going out and, like, trying to fit itself into one of these tropes was such an interesting experience in of its own. So yeah, this is like one thing that I wanted to let you know why I enjoyed this book so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I think a trope can be like super fun. It's gonna
Yeah.
be there's fake dating is in my next book. Um, but uh yeah, I think there's also so much fun and just kind of like, okay, but this one is just life. Like this is just
Right.
somebody living life for a slice in time. So
Yeah.
it's fun. I love that I can explore both.
Yeah. I wanted to know finally, like what's next. You've already kind of mentioned and given away that, your next book is going to be about Mormon. And
Yeah.
so like, can you just give us a little bit more? Go
Yes.
ahead.
Absolutely. So I'm really excited about this next book. It is fake dating, so we're going to be heavy on a trope, and it is dual point of view, which I've never done before, which is really
Right.
exciting. So it goes
Right.
between the mer person's point of view and a human's point of view. The
Right.
mer person's human name that they have to take on for this month is Ross,
Okay.
and human person's name is Sean. So Ross is mer; he's a mer person, and
Right.
there's this tradition in their culture called the journey, where a mer teen has to come on land for one moon cycle. And in that time, they have to help a human. And it needs to be this totally selfless act. They're doing it just to enrich that person's lives, uh, and then hop back into the ocean, or the blue that they call it, if they want. Or if they really love life on land, they can stay, but they can't come back. There's no, it's, you're either choosing a human life or a mer person life.
Right. Right.
And Ross is convinced he is going to hate humans. He is not like Ariel waiting to be part of your world. He's like, or they're like, humans are the absolute worst. Um, and, and I do not want to spend time with them. And so they're thinking like, okay, I'm just going to find the biggest loser I can find and help them out somehow. And then go back at the end of this month.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then they find Sean, and Sean is a recently dumped lifeguard. And in this next month, there's a whole series of events at Sean's school where he's going to have to show up single to these things that his ex is at, and his ex already has a new boyfriend. And so the way that Ross is going to help a human is by pretending to be Sean's partner.
Right.
And coming to all these things so that Sean doesn't have to end up single. And then, of course, as all fake dating tropes have, they eventually fall in love. And it's exploring like, well, what does this mean now? The
Right.
themes are like, can love for a person override love for your home when you literally have to choose between one or the other?
Right.
And I'm just super excited about it. There's gonna be some fun antics. Like, the rules for this world are if Ross gets wet, their fin comes out. So of course they're gonna have some times where Ross's fin comes out.
Right.
and crazy insanity ensues.
It reminds me of
Um,
this film that I watched called Luca, which was so beautiful if you watched that.
yes, it's so sweet.
So
Yes,
yeah,
I love that movie, and I agree. Like, I love that they did it in a way where if you're seeing these people like a crush developing,
yeah,
in at least in my mind, the way that I'm going to interpret it is there's a crush developing, and that's okay and that's beautiful. But then also, if you're a straight boy watching this, it's okay to show affection to your straight guy friends. That's also a beautiful thing too, to just be able
absolutely,
to have
absolutely.
that. So
So
I'm excited to contribute to
when is
Mer
this
culture.
coming out?
It's coming out in May of 2022.
Oh, that's not very far away. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, we're already like what 8, 9 months into 2021. So
yeah.
like,
It'll be out in like another 9 months. It's
yeah,
crazy.
it's like super super soon. It'll go in a blink of an eye. And considering how many amazing books are coming out in the time from here, I think it wouldn't be like too long of a wait.
Yeah,
So
I'm so excited for it to be
yeah,
here. And I think we get to reveal the cover like around the 1st of October. So just a
right.
few more weeks. And it's
Oh
gonna
my
be so
God.
good.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I'm definitely going to be, putting on my all my notifications on so that I don't miss any keen updates as soon as it releases.
It'll be
But
so
thank you so much for taking out the time to chat with me. It was an absolutely stunning 40 minutes or almost an hour that we spoke. And it was so much fun. I had so much of insights that I wanted to know. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so great. I really appreciate all your love and support for Jay.